On the eve of the piano competition, my right hand was inadvertently scalded, causing me to miss the championship. Upon hearing this, Jason rushed back overnight from out of town. Everyone said he loved me deeply, but only I knew that Jason had someone burn my hand to please his true love. In the hospital, the man glanced carelessly at my ghastly wound and said nonchalantly, "Does it hurt that much? Stop pretending." I only instructed them to splash half a cup of water. Listening to the man's indifferent tone, I refrained from causing a scene and instead silently planned my escape from the wedding a month later. In the quiet hospital room, Jason once again illuminated his phone screen, his eyes repeatedly darting toward it as if awaiting someone's message. Observing the blood beginning to backflow in the 4-tube, the man remained distracted, prompting me to finally speak up. "Jason, the 4 bottle is empty." Jason responded perfunctorily without sparing me a glance. At that moment, a message alert sounded, and a smile immediately appeared on Jason's lips, his eyes softening as his fingers rapidly tapped on the phone screen. I turned my head away, no longer looking at him, knowing without doubt that Jason was replying to Wendy's message, the only one who could elicit tenderness from the otherwise cold Jason. "By the way, go home by yourself after the 4 is done," Jason instructed without lifting his head, while I turned to gaze out the window at the drizzling rain and strong wind. Coincidentally, at that moment, Wendy posted on Facebook a picture of a large bank transfer record, captioned, "Then thank you for Jason's 520,000. I was momentarily lost in thought, suddenly recalling the 520 yuan red envelope Jason sent me on Valentine's Day, which he only agreed to give after I pestered him at length, visibly annoyed. The man's words still echoed in my ears. "Summer, when did you become so vain? It's just a trivial holiday, do you need to be so petty about it?" Yet to please Wendy, he was willing to spend 520,000 yuan without hesitation, while I curled my fingers helplessly, as if this could ease the sharp pangs in my heart. At that moment, Wendy entered holding a bouquet of flowers. Upon seeing her, Jason leapt up, his face brimming with unconcealed delight, and he walked over to take the flowers from her hands. Wendy, oblivious to others, revealed the trophy hidden behind her back and declared with immense pride, "The championship is mine." Jason appeared even more elated than she was, embracing her in front of me, a scene I found bitterly ironic. In the first 2 preliminary rounds, I secured the championship each time, establishing a clear lead over Wendy, who placed second, prompting even the judges to congratulate me in advance, saying, "Miss Summer, no one here is your match." At that time, nearly everyone was convinced the championship was mine, but Wendy approached Jason, weeping pitifully and clutching his sleeve. Without her even saying a word, Jason couldn't bear it, and, deeply distressed, he promptly arranged for someone to burn my right hand. God knows how heartbroken I was when I called the staff. "Miss Summer, are you voluntarily withdrawing from the competition?" The staff asked in disbelief, as I let tears stream into my mouth, suppressing wave after wave of heartache. "Yes, I am voluntarily withdrawing," I said, slowly averting my gaze from the trophy that should have been mine, for I could lose to anyone but not to Wendy. Jason remained unaware that Wendy was the culprit behind my father's death. 10 years ago, to save a drowning Wendy, my father jumped into the lake without hesitation despite attempts to stop him, rescuing her. Yet, upon reaching shore, Wendy's first act was not to thank my father but to adamantly accuse him. "He touched my pants underwater. He's a pervert." As a teacher, my father couldn't endure the disgrace and, amid the crowd's condemnation, chose to take his own life. Wendy finally noticed me, offering her trophy with a smile to console me. "Sister Summer, don't be too sad. The championship isn't something anyone can claim just by wanting it. You touched the trophy, so you're a champion too." Gazing at the woman's empathetic face, I couldn't suppress the anger welling within me, and I let out an uncontrollable sneer. "You can be so at ease with something stolen." As my words landed, Jason frowned, swiftly shielding Wendy behind him, his face darkening ominously, while Wendy's eyes brimmed with more tears, poised to fall, evoking pity. "Summer, did the 4 drip ruin your brain?" Wendy came to comfort you, not to be your punching bag, Jason retorted. Wendy sobbed softly, tugging at the man's sleeve. Don't say that. If it weren't for Sister Summer's injury. Jason, unmoved, cast me an annoyed glance. You don't need to defend her. Lack of skill is lack of skill. Winning a few awards doesn't mean she's better than Wendy, his harsh words leaving me slightly stunned. When I first began my relationship with Jason, he wasn't yet the wealthy man he'd become. Recognizing my passion for the piano, he used all his savings to buy me one. I'll always remember that day. Jason stood in a cramped rental room, a piano that seemed out of place behind him, hiding hands frostbitten from relentless part-time work. He said to me, "Congratulations, Miss Summer, on acquiring your first piano in life." I cried intensely, unable to form a complete sentence. I clearly have no talent in this. Jason gently embraced me, whispering in my ear, "No, Summer. In my heart, you are the greatest pianist." It was thanks to his repeated encouragement that I didn't abandon my dreams. But people change, like Jason at 31, no longer the 22-year-old who prioritized me and favored me unconditionally. When Jason left the ward, the door slammed with a deafening crash, and he even hurled a stern warning at me. "Summer, this is my final warning. If you upset Wendy again, I won't marry you next month." Jason habitually used marriage as a threat, convinced I couldn't live without him. Perhaps once true, but now I opened my phone, purchased a ticket abroad for a month later, coincidentally the day of our wedding. After the 4 finished, the clock struck 4 a.m. Without my phone, I walked home alone, opening the door as dawn faintly broke. Jason, apron tied around his waist, was cooking in the kitchen, bringing a hint of warmth to the cold house. He glanced up, seemingly noticing my wet hair and disheveled clothes, a rare flicker of guilt crossing his eyes. Rubbing his forehead as if pained, he approached me. "It was wrong of me to leave you this time." I ordered takeout. "Eat something," his tone softening as if to mend the rift. I glanced at the simple takeout on the table, feeling no appetite. There was even a fried egg in the box. After all these years, Jason still forgot I'm allergic to eggs. Unintentionally, I noticed several lunch boxes on the counter, vegetables, meat, even freshly cut fruit, and a pot of pork rib soup simmering on the stove. Perhaps sensing my gaze, the man faltered guiltily, shifting his body to obscure my view, explaining, "You know, Wendy's exhausted from piano practice. I can't just do nothing," spreading his hands as if genuinely helpless. In the past, I'd have made a fuss, but now a sense of helplessness crept within me. A year ago, when Jason lost his wallet on a business trip, it was Wendy who assisted him. Since then, Jason often said, if it weren't for Wendy, I wouldn't know what to do, always standing by her side unflinchingly, no matter her troubles, and whenever I voiced my discontent. Jason would grow impatient. "Summer, Wendy isn't just anyone, I see her as my own sister." Reflecting on this, I gently pushed the man aside, saying, "She does need some care," and Jason glanced at me in surprise, as if my current demeanor struck him as unfamiliar. He didn't probe further, instead pulling a small, exquisite jewelry box from his pocket. I recognized it instantly as the diamond necklace I'd asked for months ago, a request he'd repeatedly ignored until now. I watched Jason open the box, the diamond necklace as dazzling as it had been in the jewelry store, yet I felt no joy, having seen an identical one around Wendy's neck. I still recall her triumphant air. "This necklace?" I just mentioned it to Jason, and the next day it was mine. What I'd coveted, Wendy obtained effortlessly. In an instant, I pushed Jason away in disgust and headed to the bedroom, an action that infuriated him. The man snapped the box shut, anger tinging his brows. "Summer, what's that supposed to mean? You won't eat the food in front of you, fine, but you won't even glance at the necklace I bought. Are you still sulking over that incident?" As for that incident, both Jason and I understood it well. Seeing my apparent indifference, Jason's anger intensified, his chest heaving like an enraged lion as he seized a nearby photo frame and smashed it to the ground, the glass shattering instantly. "Summer, you're truly out of control now." I said nothing, staring at the photo on the floor, our first picture together, one I'd specially framed to cherish. I still remember Jason's words from that time, "Summer, I won't change my heart, so you're not allowed to leave me, we'll be together forever." Back then, I was too naive, easily believing him, so I teased with a smile, "What if you do change your heart?" And Jason, hearing this, actually considered it seriously. He finally said resolutely, "Then you should never forgive me, no matter how pitifully I beg you to return. Summer, remember this, never look back." The faces of young Jason and adult Jason merged in my mind, my nose stung as I struggled to suppress the urge to pick up the frame, and in the end, Jason and I parted on bitter terms. The argument ended because it was nearly time to deliver food to Wendy. After Jason slammed the door and left in a hurry, the room fell silent again. I gazed at the old piano without a moment's hesitation, grabbed a hammer, and smashed it relentlessly. Once it was unrecognizable, I called the recycling service. The recycling staff was shocked by the wrecked piano and asked, "Are you sure you want to sell it?" I nodded calmly, "It's just a pile of insignificant junk." Over half a month passed, the wedding day drawing nearer, yet Jason seemed to have forgotten me, unwilling even to step through the door. The man who once complained to me about being too busy with work was now willing to travel the world with Wendy, a fact I learned from her Facebook posts. Lately, her Facebook updates were frequent, mostly photos with Jason. Seeing his smiling face, I couldn't help but laugh inwardly, for I hadn't seen him smile in ages. He always wore a stern, unapproachable expression with me. Many friends, aware of this, asked me, "What's Jason's relationship with that woman?" I paused, then said, "Just ordinary friends." "Are you still getting married?" I laughed, "Of course, you must attend the wedding." Hearing my steady tone, nearly everyone assumed I was so infatuated with Jason that I'd marry him despite his infidelity. Finally, 3 days before the wedding, Jason returned, bringing an assortment of gifts, large and small, nearly filling the entire house. Jason rubbed my head, saying contentedly, "If only you could always be this obedient," and I suppressed my revulsion to avoid recoiling from his touch. This hand that had held Wendy's countless times felt filthy to me. He handed me a card with a condescending tone, "You pick the wedding ring. Wendy's busy with a competition lately, and I need to be with her." Perhaps fearing another tantrum, Jason preemptively warned, "This competition is crucial for Wendy. Don't be unreasonable." To his surprise, I merely nodded lightly. Jason didn't dwell on my unusual response, assuming I'd become compliant, and left in high spirits, spending 3 more days with Wendy without guilt. On the wedding day, as the makeup artist styled my hair for the final time before I went on, I listened to the MC's voice until it announced, "Let us welcome the bride." The rest was cut off by an urgent ringtone. Under everyone's gaze, Jason answered in a panic, and Wendy's tearful voice came through, "Jason, the goldfish you bought me is belly up. Is it dying?" On speaker, nearly the entire hall heard. A look of struggle crossed Jason's face as I watched from behind the distant curtain, until he raised his hand decisively, "Sorry, the wedding is paused. It'll resume in about 30 minutes, sparking an uproar among the audience. Jason left without hesitation, pushing the door open. This time, I didn't waver either, tearing off my veil, shedding the wedding dress, and departing in a taxi amid stunned stares. Just before boarding the plane, the 30 minutes elapsed, and Jason began bombarding me with calls. Annoyed, I turned off my phone early. I thought I'd never hear of Jason again, but as I settled into my seat, nearby passengers whispered, "Did the bride really run away? How could it be fake?" I heard Jason's nearly mad with rage. A wedding worth tens of millions, ruined just like that. Hearing this, I put in earplugs and drifted into a drowsy sleep. Upon landing, my phone showed hundreds of missed calls and messages, with another call coming in just then. Dragging my suitcase, I hesitated before answering Jason's final call. He sounded furious, his words aggressive. "Summer, where are you? Are you insane? Marriage is a serious matter, not a place for your nonsense." After listening, I let out a mocking laugh, saying, "Since you know marriage is serious, Yet you still chose to be with Wendy, Jason, who's really the one being ridiculous? My words left him momentarily speechless. He hadn't expected me, always so compliant, to retort. Suddenly, a sweet female voice reached my ears. Jason, why aren't you here yet? The sweet and sour ribs are almost burnt. Jason snapped back, soothing her, I'll be there soon, then lowered his voice, instructing me with evident frustration, I don't care where you've gone. Just return in a week, and the wedding will proceed as planned. As ever, he brimmed with confidence. While neither of us spoke further, he added, don't misunderstand. Wendy won another championship, and I'm just celebrating with her, his tone tinged with subtle pride, but I merely twitched my lips and hung up without another word. Over the years, Jason seemed to have left me with nothing but a faint scar on my right hand, yet I no longer cared. To adapt quickly to life here, I took up part-time work while advancing my piano studies. During that period, even the calluses on my fingertips thickened. 7 relentless days of overwork finally caused me to collapse in a cafe, and upon waking, a tall figure stood by my bedside. I propped myself up, straining to identify him, when he turned abruptly, revealing an all too familiar face. The man smiled, his charm undiminished by time. Summer, long time no see, he said, and in that instant, the joy of reunion surged within me. Daniel? He nodded, his smile widening. In a foreign land, I unexpectedly encountered a close friend from my youth. Unlike Jason, who built himself from nothing, Daniel was born into wealth, yet his looks and abilities were exceptionally outstanding. In our first year of high school, Daniel inexplicably asked, if I wanted to study abroad, would you agree? Back then, my heart and mind were consumed by Jason, so I naturally replied, of course I agree. That same day, Daniel boarded a plane abroad. For years, he remained out of touch, and I only heard from others. I hear Daniel's now a renowned lawyer. Wow, so impressive, a figure consistently admired from afar. My thoughts tangled chaotically as Daniel reached out, unreservedly touching my forehead. My heartbeat slowed momentarily, too startled to pull away. How do you take care of yourself? A 39-degree fever and you're still working, he said, and I smiled sheepishly, thinking Daniel remained as mature as ever. Then the phone rang. Glancing at it, I saw an unknown number and answered unsuspectingly, only to be met with a tirade. Summer, are you trying to die? Do you know how long I waited for you at the airport? Hearing the man's frenzied voice, I felt an odd sense of satisfaction. You see, Jason once treated me the same way, often agreeing half-heartedly, let's go to the movies tomorrow, only to abandon me just before showtime with a casual, Wendy needs me, wait for me, I'll be right back. Leaving me waiting foolishly until dark, all because of Wendy's single coquettish remark. Whenever I demanded an explanation, Jason would raise an eyebrow, resuming his indifferent demeanor, saying casually, Summer, you need to be more sensible. Wendy's so young, give her some leeway. After all, young girls like being prioritized. Yet he seemed to forget the promise he once made, Summer, in my heart, you'll always be first. In my distracted pause, the ever-quiet Daniel spoke, your hair's messy, need me to fix it? His moderate voice reached Jason's ears. This elicited a fiercer reaction from Jason, who roared, Summer. Who are you with? Who let you hang out with another man? I offered Daniel an awkward smile. In contrast to Jason's hysteria, Daniel merely nodded politely, signaling understanding, while my impatience grew. Resisting the urge to hang up, I said, Jason, stop threatening me with marriage. I have no desire to marry you now. Perhaps my tone was too earnest. Jason softened, though he refused to accept it, questioning repeatedly, what kind of joke is this? But my patience was utterly depleted. Frowning, I said with disgust, can't you stop clinging like gum I can't shake off? You're making me sick. That last sentence came from my core. Then, heedless of Jason's reaction, I hung up decisively. Daniel, however, seemed in high spirits, asking casually, fight with your boyfriend? I frowned instinctively, retorting, we broke up long ago, and he said no more. After 2 days of rest, I immersed myself fully in piano studies again. A broader world sharpened my awareness of my own shortcomings. Daniel's companionship gradually eased my loneliness. A gentle, romantic soul, he often handed me flowers, sometimes baby's breath, sometimes jasmine, and I slowly forgot Jason's existence. Until 3 days later, returning home, I spotted Jason waiting at the door. In just half a month, he'd thinned, sporting a blue stubble, his usually neat shirt now disheveled. The moment our eyes met, Jason sprang up, unable to resist complaining, "Summer, you made me wait so long." His words rang true. After all, the old me never let Jason wait more than 5 minutes, assuming he was busy and valuing his time immensely. Until one day, I saw Wendy's Facebook post. Though the photo showed only a man's back, I recognized him instantly. Wendy gloated in her caption, "Hee hee, today I made the big CEO wait 2 hours, but he didn't get mad, he loves me so much." My vision blurred as tears dripped onto the screen. You see, Jason once flew into a rage for waiting 3 extra minutes. People like you with no sense of time, nobody will indulge you. Lost in myriad thoughts, I snapped back, showing Jason no warmth. Carrying a heap of supplies, I brushed past him to the door, pulling out my key. Seeing this, Jason reached out. "It's heavy, let me help," as if we were still in love, but I evaded his hand, looking up sternly. "Jason, I don't need you anymore. Please leave my home." Jason froze, taking ages to recover. After a while, he lowered his hand, face grim. "What nonsense is this? I came to the UK for you. If you still mind my relationship with Wendy, I can promise I'll keep my distance from her." The 18-year-old Summer would have believed him without hesitation, but the 29-year-old Summer standing before him no longer needed his flimsy promises. As Jason and I reached an impasse, Daniel appeared. Seeing me in a thin coat, he removed his own and draped it over my shoulders. "You're disobedient again, always wearing so little." Daniel looked at me, his tone complaining yet his eyes brimming with warmth. I instantly grasped his intent, linking my arm with his and leaning close. "Why are you so late?" "I've been waiting ages." In an instant, Jason's fury ignited fully. He gripped my wrist, his lips set in a cold line. "Summer, we haven't broken up," he reminded me. Frowning, I forcefully shook off his grasp. "From the moment you left for Wendy, we ceased to have any connection." Daniel stepped in front, shielding me completely, gazing at his broad back. I felt a faint daze. Before he went abroad, he often stood before me like this, protecting the thin, small me from childhood bullies time and again. My heart raced faster, as if long-buried emotions had suddenly burst free, spilling out entirely. Daniel's voice came from above. "I assume Jason has no interest in someone else's girlfriend," prompting Jason's expression to shift repeatedly, veins pulsing faintly at his temple, a sign I knew meant extreme anger. He lowered his voice, bypassing Daniel to stare at me, his tone laced with warning. "Summer, come here," extending his hand toward me. For the first time, I loathed Jason's self-assured demeanor so intensely. I stepped back, shaking my head slowly. "You should have abandoned that notion long ago." Sensing my rejection, Daniel wasted no more words on Jason, instead gripping my hand tightly, opening the door, and leading me inside. As Jason tried to follow, I shut the door first with a bang, locking him out. I didn't miss the fleeting shock in his eyes. He pounded the door unwillingly, shouting my name, but I pretended not to hear. It seemed from that day, a subtle shift occurred in my relationship with Daniel, yet neither of us chose to pierce that delicate veil. Since Daniel drove me daily, even my friends at the piano shop knew him, often teasing, "You should accept him," but I'd just smile silently, for I had more pressing matters at hand. My father's wrongful disgrace had become an indelible thorn in my heart. Fortunately, a breakthrough emerged as I contacted a participant who'd jumped into the lake with him that day. It was time to return. When I shared my plans with Daniel, he gazed at me earnestly for a second before deciding instantly to return with me. I was stunned by his resolve, for Daniel thrived in the UK legal world with no apparent reason to leave. Daniel noticed my hesitation. "Don't you see," he said, gently taking my hand, his tender gaze growing resolute, "I should be by your side. Summer, please let me witness your success." Not to help me succeed, but to witness it. This phrase revealed how deeply Daniel understood me, a realization only I could grasp. Back in the country, I worked tirelessly day and night gathering evidence. Proof from 4 or 5 years ago was hard to come by, but I persevered, for closing my eyes always brought my father's pale, lifeless face before me. The night before the trial, Wendy, unseen for ages, sought me out, still frail as ever. Her appearance was far less polished than before. Her eyes brimmed with endless exhaustion and resentment. Upon seeing me, she dropped to her knees with a thud, clutching my pant leg to plead, but I shifted my foot away, unmoved by the tears streaking her face. Jason arrived then. From his helpless expression, I surmised he'd learned of the matter between Wendy and me, and this time, he spared her no extra glance. Jason forced a smile uglier than a grimace, opening his mouth as if to speak to me. Wendy spoke first. "Sister Summer, please spare me for the sake of Jason's child I'm carrying," her words dripping with emotion. I knew she dreaded bearing this guilt. Jason reacted more fiercely than Wendy, kicking her aside with no trace of past tenderness. "If you spout nonsense before Summer again, I won't forgive you." Lowering his voice, Jason threatened Wendy with bloodshot eyes. Watching her clutch her stomach and wail in pain on the ground, I had no desire to verify if she truly bore his child. Just then, Daniel's car pulled up. He rolled down the window, saying, "Get in quick. You said we'd see a movie today," and I flashed a smile, swiftly climbing inside. Jason blocked the closing window, waving movie tickets nervously. "Remember that film you wanted to see? I booked the theater today, just you and me." My eyes fell on those tickets. Our roles had reversed. Typically, I'd buy 2 tickets, rushing to Jason eagerly, "Let's go to the movies every weekend." Back then, Jason would sit in his office chair, brushing me off curtly, "You should be more sensible. I've got a huge company to run, where's the time to indulge your whims?" So I took Daniel's hand, smiling brightly, "No need, I already have company." Jason couldn't maintain even a facade of calm, yet he persisted, "Are you free tomorrow? Ted misses you lately and won't eat his favorite freeze-dried treats." I paused. Ted was the puppy Jason and I raised together, but no matter how I tried to win it over, it ignored me, always circling Wendy instead. I considered it, then shook my head. "Ted's yours." "I despise dogs that won't warm up to me," a pointed remark Jason grasped, his legs buckling as his face paled further. I patted Daniel, urging, "Let's go," and as we drove off, I could still see Jason in the rearview mirror, standing like a statue. In court, as the judge delivered the final verdict, I felt an unprecedented relief, as if a burden had lifted. Wendy was sentenced to prison, and this time, no matter how pitifully she wept, no one was swayed. Leaving the courtroom, I ran into Jason, clutching a massive bouquet of vibrant red roses that nearly engulfed him, drawing onlookers. He pulled out a diamond ring, kneeling, "Summer, will you marry me?" Seeing his trembling hands, I inexplicably wanted to laugh. Once, this mirrored my dream proposal, but the timing was wrong. Jason's efforts to atone were futile. Envious murmurs rose from the crowd, "She's so lucky." Few women could refuse such a proposal, and Jason, hearing this, grew visibly more anxious, his eyes subtly pleading. I thought the best revenge was to make him feel the pain I'd endured, so under the crowd's stunned gazes, I knocked over the roses, petals scattering as they hit the ground hard. I flashed the gleaming ring on my hand at Jason. "You've no chance, I'm already engaged." Jason seemed drained of all strength, his knees buckling as he knelt before me. "Summer, as long as you don't leave me, I'll do anything. How can I let go of over a decade of feelings?" His eyes reddened in a fragility I'd never seen. I shook my head firmly and slowly, countering, "No, you can. From the first time you favored Wendy, you could let go." Daniel approached, holding my coat. I linked arms with him, ignoring the pleas behind me, and left the bustling crowd without looking back. The day Summer left, Jason saw her resolute back for the first time. He jolted awake, his mind flooded with images of her, all marked by disappointment and hurt, her departure no whim, but a calculated choice after a masked disillusionment. During that time, Jason withdrew into despondency at home, unmoved by any persuasion. Each night, he'd wake inexplicably, dreaming of Summer with tear-streaked cheeks, standing alone, frail and small, asking why he abandoned her repeatedly. Panicked, Jason wanted to hold Summer, comfort her, and say, "It's not like that. I love no one but you." But each step he took forward, Summer stepped back, stubbornly invoking Wendy, the stark scar on her hand the most damning proof. Gazing at that scar, Jason's heart ached more than anyone's, as if enduring a slow, cruel torment. After leaving Jason, Summer thrived. With her exceptional talent, her fame in the piano world grew, and mentions of her name always drew admiring praise. Each time, a strange pride swelled in Jason's heart, swiftly followed by profound regret. He yearned daily to see Summer again, until one day, crossing the street, he met a chatty little girl with eyes strikingly like hers. As if by intuition, Jason looked beside the girl, and the figure he'd longed for burst into view. His eyes reddened instantly, unable to take a step. Summer glanced at him, her expression calm, as if regarding a stranger. They didn't linger, soon entering a private car. The girl's cheerful voice still echoed in his ears, "Daddy's sneaking a kiss from Mommy again." Jason fantasized, had there been no Wendy, might all he witnessed today have been his instead?